Hi, everybody. I'm here today with Bernie Casey and Ann Vermette, and we're going to be talking about acquisitions and right-sizing companies and the associated communications plans. So I'm going to start with Bernie. So Bernie, why would a company want to make an acquisition during a time of uncertainty?
Well, a time of uncertainty is also a time of opportunity. Tremendous opportunity exists out there with companies that are maybe they're cash strapped due to the environment that we're in, and they need that cash desperately. So they either have to borrow or have investment or be acquired. And they may have excellent fundamentals. They may be great companies, but they're in trouble. And other companies with more resources can take advantage of that situation, and that is the reason.
Mhm.
So perhaps, Anne, you'd like to comment on managing the process, which I
Yeah,
think is more important.
thanks, Bernie. It's interesting when you say resources, and maybe you can elaborate a little more on resources. But really, when we talk about managing that process, and Bernie, you're in finance, so there's the financial perspective, and then there's the people HR perspective, and often what I've played a role in is kind of bringing those partners all together, operations, finance, the people, who's going to be impacted, and put it into a communication plan. Often, we've probably both experienced this, Bernie, where we have an idea, it's a great idea, we move forward with an acquisition, or we may need to downsize for whatever reason, and we rush into it. But a communication plan can make things successful. So slowing down that process on who are the stakeholders, who are the impacted employees, who are the non-impacted employees, and what that communication looks like. So it's almost like a project management approach that most HR professionals that I've worked with and myself have used in the past. And we go as far as, what do we think the reactions will be from the employees, from the stakeholders, and preparing those appropriate communications at those various levels, including even scripting to help some folks in the organization stay on topic.
All part of managing that process. The stresses and strains of it are immense. I've lived through a few of them, and I couldn't handle it personally. We needed that extra help, professional help, to make it smooth, because it's so emotional when you're dealing with getting much bigger fast or getting much smaller in quick time. And I think one of the differences between acquiring versus right-sizing is the fact in acquisition, you're dealing with some unknowns because you're getting another corporation. So do they have any contingent liabilities that you don't know about, potential risks that you're not aware of? Should you be buying their entire assets and liabilities, or just the assets? Should you have a new company name? I mean, many different factors, legally, accounting wise, tax considerations. I dealt with a case recently where someone paid way too much tax because they didn't do it properly. And these are major factors.
And from a people perspective, Bernie, when I've been involved in acquisitions, what I find is the emotions are very high on both the person, the individual, the owner operator who is actually purchasing, plus also the owner operator who's selling, because there's an emotional connection to an organization that they've grown. So from a people perspective, the employees that you might decide that you're going to continue to employ as part of the acquisition, knowing who those stakeholders are, like if you're going to be able to successfully run that organization, who do you want to make sure is going to stay on your team during this process? Great people have other opportunities, and those are the things that we usually consider in HR when we're putting communication plan together.
Yeah. From a finance point of view, I see a couple of quick points. One is modeling the way it exists now versus what it'll look like in the future, and seeing what the differences are from a financial point of view. You know, do we have enough cash in the system? You know, are the structures correct? Also, coaching on shedding those expenses that are needed to be shed. There's a way of doing it, and there's a way of not doing it. Arranging the financing or the investing, which is important if new loans are required, or investors or venture capital is required, if the company is positioned for that. And also managing of the process, you know, to relieve the stress. So those are the only major categories that I see from a financial point of view.
Yeah,
In acquisition, there'd be due diligence. That'd be the only other one.
yeah, like if we're considering right sizing, acquisition, you know, in an acquisition, what might be a little bit different is from an HR perspective, we would look at the payroll and making sure that if we decide to keep the employees on, that we're offering comparable wages and benefits. Because there's labor laws around that, you know, and so we consider the province and the regulations that the employees are under, and then we look at and we work directly with finance in that, right? You know, making sure that we're offering those comparable wages, and you know, there's a whole package that kind of goes with sitting down with those employees, and a communication plan that what I find in communication plans is the more detail, the better. That can sometimes annoy some of my partners because it does take some good amount of time to do a proper communication plan. So it goes back to, Bernie, you and I talking about, you know, slowing down a little bit and saying, and in the midst of that, to say, oh, it's okay to stop here, and maybe we might need to have a specialist come in because, you know, maybe we're a little over our head, or we need some expertise, or we can't do it all ourselves, like you mentioned early, Bernie. But, you know, when we think about right sizing, it's also the same thing. Communication is key. Who are the stakeholders? Who's impacted? What does that communication plan look like? And how does that correlate directly with the objective of the organization, which is either right sizing or an acquisition?
So we're just about out of time now. So do you both have some closing thoughts that you'd like to leave the viewers with? Bernie?
I think my closing thought is find someone you can trust who doesn't have a self-interest in this thing, in the processes that are going to be required to acquire or to right size, and get some help. That's my point. And I think I leave it there.
Okay.
Great, thanks, Bernie. I echo the same thing as you as well. I think for me, when I work with partners, and what I suggest to any HR colleague is to have that transparency through all the partners and the stakeholders when the time is right. Sometimes it's not always the right time to have those conversations with employees. So confidentiality is really important too, and a concrete communication plan. It's okay to go back and revise it. There's no set stone process. We can always go back and be okay to go back and call in those people that might need to support that process so it's done successfully.
All right. Thanks, Anne. And thank you to you as well, Bernie. We're out of time today. So to our viewers, if you have any comments or questions, please submit them in the comment section below. Thank you for watching, and be safe.